Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.
Good afternoon and welcome to Working for You. I am Lesroy Williams. Thank you for tuning in to today's program. Wherever you are very welcome to join us. Today we are going to be discussing the Skills Empowerment Training Program that is celebrating its first anniversary since transitioning from PEP into STEP. And today I have with me two officials from the Department of STEP to tell you more about how the program has been advancing. I have with me the Field Program Coordinator, Mr. William Phillip. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
And I have with me the Director of STEP. Yes, we have a Director of STEP, Mr. Wendell Watley. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I am going to start with Mr. Watley. You are the Director of STEP. How long have you been the Director of STEP?
Well, my tenure started on the August the 1st, 2017.
Okay, right. Now, of course, when you came in, there was already STEP. But before that, prior to that, we had PEP. Why the shift from PEP to STEP? Some people say it's a step up. It's a step up from PEP. PEP, the acronym, stood for People Employment Program. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Why the shift?
Well, actually, the shift is to shift the focus of the PEP program as it was then. It was mainly an employment focused program. Yes, there was some training as well. However, the STEP program is heavily focused on training, particularly in the technical and vocational areas of skilled areas. It is important to recognize that the acronym Skills Training Empowerment Program really speaks for itself, because the focus is on skills training. We do have persons who are assigned to entities that do not focus specifically on the skilled areas. However, we have been making some very, very important moves towards ensuring that the transition from PEP to STEP is realized over time.
What have been some of the areas of training, or what are some of the areas?
For example, in March of 2017, we had about 87 persons, interns from the STEP program, who were involved in a 6-month training program. And this was in a number of different modules: carpentry, cosmetology, you had electricity, automotive, some people call it automotive engineering, but it's automotive body repair and also engine repairs. We also had landscaping. So we were able to shift persons who were perceived as just grass cutters to persons who learn a particular skill in landscaping, which is different from basically cutting grass. And from there, we were able to take from those 80 odd persons, 30 persons to go to AVEC. Presently, those persons are at AVEC involved in training in the different disciplines that are indicated there, cosmetology, and so on. At the end of this training, the participants would receive a CVQ, which is the Caribbean Vocational Certified qualification. This qualification allows these persons to be able to compete with those persons who are coming in from Barbados, Trinidad, Jamaica, etc., that actually hold that particular level of qualification. The TVEC Secretariat would be responsible for ensuring that they are competent training at that level.
Okay, now you mentioned that before the program was viewed to a large extent as people who were cutting grass. And it is much more than that. This step up is much more than just, the perception that people are cutting grass. Now, what were some of the challenges and irregularities with PEP? And how have some of these been resolved?
There were a number of challenges with PEP. For instance, when it comes to labor force, we realized that persons were not going to work early, going to work very late, finishing very early, and getting pay. As a matter of fact, we found out that persons who are not living in St. Kitts on the payroll and getting pay. So we were able, with the transformation, to eliminate some of these problems that we found.
Right.
So going forward into STEP, we have made sure that we have a number of procedures in place, checks and balances. Because of these checks and balances, we have been able to counteract those problems that we were having.
Okay. So those were some of the irregularities.
Those were some of the irregularities.
People not going to work on time, people leaving work at any time, and so on.
Still being paid.
And some people being on the payroll who never did any work.
Never did any work, but were paid.
But were paid. Some people who probably claimed that they had farms.
And it was just a backyard. Two head of herbs in a backyard. Not only claimed that they had farm, but had like 5 and 6 trainees attached to their farm. Just to a backyard farm with just 2 head of herbs. And were being paid.
Mr. Williams, the rationalization of the STEP program, PEP program, then, as Mr. Philip is indicating, we were able to reduce the total number of persons on the payroll of the program from over 4,000 to now just over 2,000 persons. That's a significant reduction, both in the numbers and in terms of the payroll, which by extension the government has to deal with via the SIDF program. By reducing the numbers, we were able to focus more on the areas that were critical for development of the country. And so we were able to refocus on our tech work and rationalize to determine, listen, we need to have persons trained and certified, because a lot of persons out there in the workforce, they are skilled, highly skilled, but they do not possess the certification that is required by those persons who are doing the employment, particularly in our labor force. And so the persons from here, as we put it, are being marginalized,
Sure.
put at a significant disadvantage. And so we are attempting to ensure that the playing field becomes a leveler, a lot more level, to ensure our people are in a better position to access jobs in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Right.
And I must say this, let it not be felt that the STEP program is only focused on St. Kitts. It is also focused on Nevis, because we have the same situation in Nevis. We are, during the course of this year, will be focused intensely on ensuring that Nevis becomes integrated in this particular process of ensuring that we have the training in the tech work areas.
Now, there are some people, you said that the numbers have been reduced in terms of people on the program. Some people view this as putting people out of work, putting people out of bread. My question is, for those persons who are no longer on the program, they have to be absorbed into the workforce somehow. Can some of them, with a different perspective on work, different orientation to work, different work ethic, can some of them reapply to the program?
They can. But let me speak to how the numbers, I want to say it again.
Sure.
How those numbers were shifted from 4,000 to now. Mr. Philip did indicate some of the abuses in that particular program before. And so we had persons, I have to say it, we had persons who were on the payroll of certain private entities who were taken off the payroll and placed on the program. We found a significant number of those persons. In addition to that, we also found that there were, as Mr. Philip indicated, there were persons who were overseas, not residing in St. Kitts and Nevis, who were actually paid from the program.
Yes.
So when you put all this together, it was difficult for the numbers to drop. In addition to that, we had on some of those farms, as Mr. Philip indicated, numbers, just numbers, but they were not actually working on those farms. Some of the farms were not even operational. And so when you really look at the picture presently against what was then, there was lack of control, lack of procedures, lack of oversight with respect to the attachment of persons to these various entities.
Sure.
And so that is where we are from where we were.
No, that word empowerment is a very strong word. And of course, that is perhaps the goal of the program, to empower people to be able to fend for themselves. And training, when people are trained and so on, empowerment comes with training and having a skill and having some knowledge that you're able to contribute positively. You can provide a service and so on to the community. And you also empower others in the service that you provide.
That's right.
Now, there are some people, of course, I don't know, who you spoke about the abuses, but some people may say, oh, well, we are empowered by the money, but we are not empowered by doing any work. How can people be empowered by money? They're receiving money, but they're not really interested in the work. And how did you get to change that mindset? Because there are people with a mindset, as long as I can get some quick money, some easy money, that is what makes me feel good. But really and truly, I don't really have to do any work. I can put in the bare minimum and be getting some sort of a thing. So it's not a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. How were you able to change that mindset on the PEP? Issues of discipline and morale.
The process is ongoing. The process of changing the mindset of persons on the program is ongoing. We cannot do what we will say, the abracadabra, and wave the wand and get that change in a jiffy. It will take time. It will take a systematic approach to speaking to our people who are on the program, letting them understand what is the real value of work. We have been having some, during the course of 2017, since I've been at the program.
Sure.
We've had meetings with all the persons who work in the field side, right around the island. We have been able to take with us a Dr. Chaitan, who is a trained person who deals with persons with particular issues. And at every one of those meetings we had around the island, Dr. Chaitan has been present, and he has had an impact, because the reaction we have heard, what we've seen, he did have an impact on those persons. Mm-hmm. We are going to continue to have the interfacing of Dr. Chaitan with those persons during the course of this year. We are not going to just have a one-off set of meetings. We have to have continuous dialogue with those persons for them to understand the critical importance of work.
Okay, so the program is not just about economic transformation, but it's about social transformation of people.
It is.
Through education, of course, because isn't that what education is supposed to do?
It is.
It is supposed to transform people. It is supposed to lead to human development in all areas, really. And I have heard that some persons working, for example, the field workers, some of them kind of trespass beyond a certain line. So they're working over, there's a line of demarcation. You can't go here, you can't go there, and so on. And maybe that is something that Dr. Neil Chaitan is
He
working
did address some of that
Mm-hmm.
in his presentation. I want to say that his presentation was very effective.
Mm-hmm.
When he made his presentation, after we had gotten a lot of feedback from our interns, his presentation was placed in such a way that he asked that you be prepared for the opportunity, and that's the only way you're going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
the trainees themselves, they capitalized on that session.
Mm-hmm.
He could tell you some stories which he came back to the step and told us that he's been met pretty often on the street. And the trainer will say, Dr. Chaitan, you remember me? I was the person in Sandy Point when you had this session with the step. And I've listened to you, and I myself have changed.
Right.
I've started coming to work early. When I'm going to be absent, I'll call my supervisor to say, listen, I'm going to be absent. When I'm going to be late, I'll make the same call. And actually now, when I get on the job, I'm productive. So that was very, very important. It went on well.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you know, the program itself is offering social benefits to people. Now, Mr. Philip, you are the field program coordinator. Can you highlight in what consists the field program? What are some of the challenges and the successes of the field program?
As the coordinator of the field side of the program, it's actually the field side has been broken down into two. We have the persons who take care of the environment, which we say the parks and beaches. They are responsible for the landscape of the communities throughout the whole island. And the other sections happen to be farms. We have often now, almost every day-to-day basis, we're hearing about food security and how important it is to feed our own people. So we have those persons who are in the environment sections. They take care of the landscape of government buildings, like community centers, sporting complex, school. They clean the schools, and they make sure that their community is well kept. The community is actually being cleaned. As Mr. Watley would say to you, when we had those series of meetings, first thing Mr. Watley would say, my community has to be clean. And you should be proud where you are from and proud to keep your community clean. You don't have to wait until tourists jump off a ship, come to St. Kitts,
Sure.
to say, well, listen, clean your country, or you have a clean country. You need to do it yourself so you yourself can enjoy it.
That's right.
So those are some of the benefits coming from the environment point of view. Farming, we have a number of persons who are out there who are doing farming.
Yeah.
What we do, we go around to the groups to make sure that our interns are properly trained, they participate, make sure that the average behavior is good, that they are well disciplined, and they train actually what to do when they're on the job, so that they can help provide for the food security of the country. So farming plays a very important part in the STEP program. We've got a number of farmers out there who, yearly when they produce, who then in turn give us back some of the produce. And we will give to the hospitals, to school meals, and government institutions. That again helps to keep down the bill, the food bill of the government. So we are very proud.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the challenges we have out there, especially in the landscaping area, we have found that persons, when they come for a job, they don't tell you that they can't work for a whole week. They'll work the first 2 weeks, Monday to Friday, 5 days per week, 8 hours a day, 40 hours. And then the third week, they show up for 2 days.
What is responsible for that?
What we have found that some persons actually, they tell themselves that they don't really have to be there every time, all the time. Simply because we realize that the dynamics, the built up of how the groups were constructed. For instance, in some area you have the supervisor there was a sister of an intern, or an aunt or a cousin, or a next door neighbor. So if you have your aunt, your niece or your nephew, or your cousin or your next door neighbor, don't show up a day or two for work, you still go and pay. Because I guess probably you're afraid to be approached by your next door neighbor or your relative when it comes to pay. So,
But they must operate by principle, though. How can you expect to get paid and you did not turn up for work?
sometimes when you talk to these people, emphasis, what you get out of them is like they already work for that money, or the grandparents had already worked, so it's something due to them. They will tell you, what noise you're making? It's not your money, it's government money. So what?
It's government money.
Mr. Williams, what we have tried to do is to kind of shift those persons where we have found relatives who are actually, well, in a sense, abusing the system, right? We have made a shift from one group to another.
Yes.
So at least there's another person accountable to to whom they are accountable to. And so these are some of the things that we found, and some, I think Mr. Philip is correct, some challenges really that we have been trying to address over time. And I think we're getting there though. I think so. And as I said before, the mindset will take a while to change, but we cannot give up on it because it is critical for our young people to understand that work is value, and there's a value to work, and not just the money alone. There's value. Okay,
Yes.
it builds a lot of discipline in people if you decide to really focus on the work value itself. And so that is something which we are looking at. And while we're on that, I must indicate to you that over the last 3 weeks, we've had some consultants who have come in, and they are in the process presently of evaluating this program.
Right.
Properly, okay?
So there will be a process of reorganizing this step.
And so forth. They'll be looking at the quality control mechanisms within the program itself, the standard operating procedures that are present or absent within the program. And also we have a local person employed to work with the STEP program to try to flush out some of those issues that we have with respect to quality control and also the standard operation procedure. At the end of that 4 months consultancy, the program itself will be we will be able to determine some of the areas, the weaknesses of the program, and recommendations how those weaknesses could be addressed.
Sure.
Okay. Additionally, there is already in process a reorganization of the program, the office per se of the STEP. We are faced with some constraints of space presently at our location, and so we are looking towards moving during the course of this year, hopefully in the first half, to another location where we can find not just comfort in the space, but also a climate which allows people to feel good working. I think you've gone to the STEP and you've seen some of the challenges that we face there with respect to the accommodation itself. And so
You need a new place.
we need a new location. Also, in terms of the organizational structure of the office itself, we're in the process of ensuring that the STEP program has a proper organizational structure. Okay? A chain of command and so forth. Also the vision, mission statement of the program, objectives of the program, right, and so forth. These are things that we need to have, because going forward we cannot operate a kind of quasi in that sort of fashion where we don't have any proper guidance to the program. And so that's what we're already in the process of actually putting together. All right?
Now, you highlighted earlier, Director Watley, about the certification and the focus on technical and vocational education and training. Why certification? And why the focus on the TVET?
the TIBIC Council, or TIBIC Secretariat, is the recognized body by funding agencies, which would be given the mandate to provide endorsement of the certification at that level. Also, the AVEC itself is also the institution that is recognized by those funding agencies to provide the training at that level as well. I don't want to jump the gun to speak on behalf of the Ministry of Education, but I can say that there's some plans to amalgamate the NSTP and the AVEC into one national training institution. And so that will benefit the STEP program tremendously. If we have that sort of umbrella organization to provide training for our persons, our interns on the program.
Okay. Now, people who would have been certified, trained and certified on the program, what steps are being taken to absorb those persons who have finished their training and been certified into the workforce?
Well, if I might go back a little bit to the 6 months program, which I spoke to earlier, we were able to attach some of those persons to the Public Works Department, carpentry. We were able to put some at the Water Department, plumbing. And we were also able to send some of those persons for attachment at the Park Hyatt, those who were involved in landscaping. And it was a tremendous benefit for them, those persons who were placed there. Mm-hmm. In addition, we were able to place some at some of the restaurants, higher end restaurants, like Jam Rock and Marshalls. Mm-hmm. Okay. One of the things that we have to impress upon our young people is that we have to move past the situation where we feel comfortable receiving basic minimum wage at $3.60. And when the opportunity is granted to you to move not just to an entity which provides you with an opportunity for full-time employment, but also you yourself should be able to look at yourself as being a potential business person. And so we are trying to redirect as well via the Development Bank to see if we can help persons who want to take that venture out. The persons who can are very good in cosmetology. Mm-hmm. And all they need is to have the confidence to be able to set up their own business. We don't want people to just be working for people. We want people to be able to work for themselves, set up their own businesses. That to me is the way where some of the ways that our young people can be empowered. And so that is something that will be pulled into the whole program going forward. How we can get our people connected into systems where they become their own bosses.
I do know that the government had the Fresh Start program, mm-hmm. which was basically geared towards helping, people like that, small and medium-sized enterprises, businesses, mm-hmm. and so on, sort of getting a loan so that they can start up their business and so on, because people need help to start their businesses mm-hmm. and so on. And I think that the government has partnered through the Development Bank with the Fresh Start program to help some of these very same people to set up their businesses. I'm correct, right?
You're correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So William, let us go back to successes. Especially when you go back, look at the landscaping, the success of the persons who was taught landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the Heroes Park.
Yeah.
On these days when you get some time, take a walk and look at the landscape at the Heroes Park. And that was done by the PEP trainees who were taught landscaping. It's an evidence one can see.
And I understand that the heroes have now been mounted. So there is significant advance been made at the National Heroes Park, thanks to people like Mr. D'Souza and so on, the PS,
That's right.
who is pushing, to have that completed.
That is true.
So it's quite a success. It's evident there. Beautiful landscape,
Right.
all done by stepping stones.
And that is where they would have received the training.
Training, on-site training.
And that is an area that is so well needed. Because when I need somebody to cut my yard, I have to get somebody to cut my yard. I'm not trained in that area. So I have to pay somebody to do it. And you have 5, 6, 7 yards that you have to cut and so on. You are making money for yourself.
Make money. Make money for yourself.
Right. Okay. Now, we speak about the STEP program, but is STEP sustainable? What is the sustainability of the STEP program? How is the program financed? And what is it really costing the country? If you care to tell us.
Well, let me start with this, that the STEP program is actually financed under the SIDF program. And certainly the cost of the country is a very significant one. That is why it is important to consider the sustainability of this STEP program. And so going forward, we have been meeting with certain persons to discuss, to brainstorm with respect to how we can assist the program in its sustainability going forward. There are some plans with respect to having the persons who are on the program. As Mr. Phillips said, agriculture is a very critical area. And so we believe that money can be made from agriculture. Presently, I've been informed that our poultry meat importation into St. Kitts is about 95%. And that's significant. The egg importation is less than that. But still, there is a gap between what is required within the country and what we actually produce locally. And so there's an opportunity that may exist or should exist where we can utilize the STEP program to provide our young people with employment and also for themselves to be making money beyond just the 316. And also the program itself to benefit from this via the properly organized project.
Yes.
Sustained project. It is a bit in the embryonic stage at this time, but that is what we're looking at going forward. How we can utilize the person within the program to benefit personally and also for the program itself to generate some revenue. Right now, the program is not a revenue generating program.
Mm-hmm.
It is not. So that is what we need to focus on going forward.
Right.
Okay.
It's amazing because you speak about the program not being a revenue generating program. But Is that one of the objectives of it?
Well,
Or the objective of it is really to empower people, to give them the skills that they need to be able to be fully employed in the workforce. Is the objective of the program really to make money?
the objective going forward, if we are going to deal with sustainability, would have to shift. They will have to shift to the point of looking at ways in which we can utilize the program to generate some revenue. Because if we have to depend on the SIDF, which does not have unlimitless,
it can be depleted.
it can be depleted. And so that is the bigger picture that we have to look at. And that's why I'm saying that going forward, the program has to take on a component of revenue generation. I'm not the policy maker, but I believe there's a need. There will be a need.
The survival of the program is very critical and important. Because we just don't want to train just in few selected a number of persons and then the other person to be trained and can't be trained.
Yes.
We would like the program to be a roll in, roll out. Comes into the program, you get a 6 months or a year training, and then you leave and give somebody
You're
else.
weaned off of it.
Right, and then somebody else who's waiting get a chance.
These were some of the issues with the PEP. You had people who were 5 years on a training program. Now, in 5 years, what can you do? You can do a master's.
Right.
You know, in 5 years, I mean, and at the end of it, what do you get after the 5 years?
Right.
There's no certification,
Nothing to show.
nothing really to show that you've been there for 5 years. You know, I think that one of the things that we have to realize is that today, when you go to look for employment, people are going to ask you, well, what do you have? What are your qualifications? What do you have to show? And until our people can understand that, it's not enough to come to me to tell me that, oh, well, you know, boy, I can do some computer work, you know. That might be good that you can do some computer work. You have some experience. But do you have a Microsoft certificate to say that you had some training from Microsoft?
It's important.
I'm a plumber, but I go to Antigua or Dominica and I tell people, man, I'm a plumber, you know. They might believe me. They might not believe me. But if I show them, look, I have this certification to say that I have done a plumbing course, they will probably be in a better place to hire you.
Definitely. Definitely.
But there are some of, I don't know if part of the challenge of the program, maybe you can speak to this, Director Watley, is how to impress upon people within the program the importance of certification. Because it is my understanding that there was some difficulty getting people to reorient themselves from just doing something and getting some money to really going into these institutions of training. Have you had some challenges there?
Yes, we had some challenges. Let me speak to the matter of certification. Those persons who were on that 6 months program from March to August last year, unfortunately, we had some challenges with respect to their receiving at least the certificate of participation. We're going to fix that by March this year. It is definitely something that we cannot allow to happen, where persons attend a training program for 6 months and do not have something in their hand to say, well, I was there, I did that.
It makes you feel good too.
It makes a difference because, as you rightly said, you can say you're skilled, but you have to show that you're skilled. Not just by being on the job doing whatever, but you show something, you went somewhere, you learn something, and so forth. The next step, as I said before, those persons who are now at APEC, they would be getting a recognized at the Caribbean level certification. So when they graduate from the AVEC, nobody can question the competency levels.
Right.
Nowhere in the Caribbean they can actually question that.
So it will be able to be used
Throughout the Caribbean.
throughout the Caribbean.
That's right.
So they can travel. For example, if you're from St. Kitts Nevis, in the OECS, there's free movement of people and free movement of skills, within the OECS. So that would be an advantage
Tremendous advantage.
to persons who would have received this certification. Now, is STEP inclusive, or is it being used for political mileage?
I would like to say that STEP is inclusive. We have not gone there, at least I could speak during my tenure,
Yes.
from August to now. Persons who come in to the office to be interviewed, they never ask or anybody refer to them as from where or for where or what the political persuasion they are.
Right.
That is not important. to
That's not
me.
a part of the
That's not important to me.
interview.
It's not a part of what we are about. We're about getting persons, young people in particular, trained. Because when it's said and done, it is, this country belongs to St. Kitts and Nevis people, nationals first, citizens after, and so on. Okay? And so, I am very passionate with respect to our people in St. Kitts and Nevis being placed in a position where they can have first place when it comes to employment. My background is education,
Yes,
25 years.
I know.
Okay? And so when I speak with passion with respect to that, it's in me. And so that's why I really want to see our young people develop skills, get certified in the skills. We're also pushing to have, I hope that AVEC can get to that point where they can have persons who are already out there in the work sites. Even contractors. There's some contractors who do not have a piece of paper to say, I am at this level. There are subcontractors who are working out there in the field who do not have a piece of paper to say, I am competent at this level. And so going forward, I would like to see AVEC fill in that gap where those persons who are already out there in the workforce can come into AVEC via the secretariat, the TVEC secretariat, and get competently certified.
Sure.
Mr. Williams, just to add before you take that, all inclusive, no discrimination.
Okay.
From every area in St. Kitts, they are step workers, and significant amount.
There are some persons who definitely would not qualify for STEP. Who would some of those persons be?
We start with persons who are already working.
So I would not qualify.
You would not.
You have a full-time job.
Let me go a little further.
But from what I understand, there was some irregularities as well, because where people would have full-time jobs and they're still on the STEP. That used to happen.
The registration process from PEP to STEP is completely different. Eliminated that.
You cannot be employed and be on the program itself. No, you can't, because the registration process itself would eliminate you from the process. Let me go a little further though, to the reaches of the STEP program. The CFBC, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, we have been able to assist them with persons who have the appropriate level of competence and training and qualification, so that we can fill the gaps that they have within the administrative end. We have been able to have some persons absorbed on the payroll of the CFBC. And I must say at this time, I wish to acknowledge Ms. Ruth Slack, the
Yes.
Human Resource Manager of that institution, for working very closely with the STEP program since I've been there, since then I've been at the program. Also, we have an institution called the Addis Place at Greenlands.
Yes.
This Addis Place takes care of persons with certain physical and other disabilities. When they started the program, according to Ms. Cotton, who is the person who directs that agency, that program there were 7 persons. The parents had to actually provide a stipend to keep the program going there at that facility. In step, in collaboration with that Addis Place, they're now up to 25. Those persons who are on the program are receiving a stipend. They have their own bank accounts. We set it up in such a way that they can feel empowered as young adults to feel good about themselves. I was there just early this week, where we did a story with our PR person. And it was great to see the smile on the faces of these people. You know, really happy. And the parents of these young people speaking very nicely about how they feel.
Yes.
Their confidence at home, the confidence coming to work. We are training them. They have been training skills. I've been there, seeing them really doing some lovely stuff. Today, for Valentine's Day, they have made some stuff which are on sale. I miss it because of this program.
Yes.
Right? But I want people to really recognize that the STEP program goes beyond the ordinary. We also are involved in the persons with disabilities at McKnight. Those persons who are interns there are paid by the STEP program as well. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, I want to speak to the private sector a bit quickly. We have St. Kitts Marine Works, what is called Boatyard, right? That business took on 4 persons. One of the persons dropped out. 3 persons are there now, fully employed. Less than 3 months, Mr. Reg Francis was able to put those 3 persons on his payroll, and he's looking at expanding to absorb persons. These guys are learning skills down there, which is relative to what they do down there in the boatyard. And you know, it's a big business now. Every time the hurricane is coming around, boats are taken out of the water right there. Maintenance of those vessels and so forth.
Engine repairs.
Okay, now the people who are working on this STEP at some of these key institutions and so on, is there an evaluation done of their work and provided to the STEP office?
That is the way going forward. That is a missing link right now. And that is something we are trying to ensure that we do in terms of the quality quality control.
Because you must receive
standards.
some sort of feedback.
Yep.
After people would have been trained and certified, and they go to certain institutions, whether as interns or what's not, you receive some feedback in terms of, you know, their quality of work, their quality of contribution in these institutions.
That's the way forward, particularly with respect to the private sector. We are looking at ensuring that we have proper documentation in terms of a contract, where those persons who are placed with the private entities within the space of 6 months, right, we would be able to nudge those persons to take on those persons full time on their payroll. But the
that-
evaluation process has to take place. As I said before, that's a missing link right now. And so if we cannot evaluate them properly, or we don't have a process of evaluation, then we have a kind of very difficult way of asserting the person's level of skill gain during their tenure there
Right.
at those institutions. Okay? I must say that...
Because on one hand, you have the STEP financing people that were trained on the program and certified on the program. And then in the private sector, you have, they're employed. And some people in the private sector, or some institutions in the private sector, some businesses in the private sector, wouldn't mind having them employed for a lifetime on STEP. In that way, of course, it redounds to their advantage because they don't have to pay them, but yet they are having the benefits of their work without paying them.
That's true.
So, is it a level playing field?
Well, we are trying to ensure that we take those sort of situations out. Okay? And as I said before, the whole reformation of the STEP going forward in terms of providing standard operation procedure, quality controls and so forth, would deal with those matters. The assessment of the evaluation of the interns, that when they are actually placed at these institutions. We also have persons who are assigned to government departments,
Yes.
ministries and so forth and so forth and so on. And I must say that we have been working very closely with the Ministry of Labour et al. With respect to the reorganization process of that particular ministry. And the permanent secretary there has been working very closely with the STEP to get persons who were initially assigned to the ministry, and there have been a significant number of them have been absorbed already into the public sector. Okay, so I think the STEP program certainly, I believe, from my view, is the public will evaluate whether or not we're moving in the right direction. But I believe we're moving in the right direction at this time.
Right. Okay. Great. Now, the irregularities that were there, I am hearing that those irregularities have been significantly minimized, and that the program is moving in the right direction. It is definitely a step up.
I would think so.
You
I have to smile because when I entered the building first time and I looked at those steps going up into
Yes.
the building, I said, really,
It's really a step
It is
up.
a step up, really.
because
So-
there are a lot of steps.
Yeah, but that's a light moment, really.
There's a lot of steps to climb.
It is,
While you speak about, the step being for the, people with disabilities and so on. People with disabilities can't go up those steps.
not those steps. No,
So that is why you need a new office, a new building that is,
more user-friendly.
user-friendly. We have to go to the phone lines and listen to what our listeners to this program have to say. And the numbers to call, the local number is 465-2555. That's the local number, 465-2555. And the overseas number is 1-718-577-2916. That is 1-718-577-2916. We welcome your calls. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon, sir.
And you two guests there, Mr. I think one is Mr. Willie and the other one is Mr. Archibald, whatever it is. Anyway.
No, Mr. Watley.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Watley.
Yes.
Well, I like the first syllable in your name, you know, what? Now, let me ask a question here. I hear you all say that all your clock, well, I mean, the PEP has moved from, it moved from PEP to step up to a better, what you call, control of the work, and also the money that was paying to PEP. And there were people in America getting paid for the PEP role. My question is, were they cutting grass in America for PEP down here? And what has become of the individual who pay that money from here to those people in America so that they're working on PEP and we don't have no PEP program in America? That person has paid back that money? Would that person there being arrested and prosecuted? We would like to know, because that money is the government money, SIDF money. So that's the question I have to ask about that. And I hope no one to chop on that. Anyway, have a good day, gentlemen.
Okay. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Williams.
Good afternoon, sir.
And good afternoon to the fellow panelists there, Carl Brown here. Good afternoon to the listening public home and abroad.
Yes.
You guys know I'm very, very passionate about agriculture and about our monkey problem. The situation here is agriculture can go a lot better and a lot bigger here. And a lot of times I hear different people and different programs and say that we are not producing the amount to keep the customers them satisfied continuously. We are producing that, but we are not eliminating the monkeys, so the continuous supply can continue to supply the whole island. It burns my heart to see all those carrots, all those onions, all those things we import, and our import bill is almost 100%. Right? While our export bill is so little. And one of the things, as you guys keep talking about agriculture, I want to see that people are trained how to catch and deplete the monkey population. Otherwise, agriculture will never be successful here, and our import bill is going to stay close 100%. So, guys, we got to make up our mind what we want. It's either agriculture, the monkeys, or we. And the monkeys, we can use them to do so many things with. The income is significant, both foreign and local. And we are paying too much attention now to the monkeys, to say the monkeys are for the tourist excitement. But we need to eat. You see what happened with Dominica the other day? We hear scrabbling now because Dominica is out of commission. We now turn to St. Vincent. And please, I want at the coconut trees them are gone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Gentlemen, you care to respond to the callers. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I must commend the STEP program. I have a message from Observer from the McKnight group for the people, disabled people. I was told that the program is so well planned that they're reforming those with disability. And I must say, my informant is my sister, Sylvian Henry. She's now going down there to learn the computer because of her eyesight. And she asked me to say that she's rather impressed with the way the not the workers, but the participants. They're not children, the participants. The program that they have, they're now able to speak, communicate, like they're giving them more. They tell them to speak and trust and what the devotions and where the pastor coming in and the attitude to work. He said not because they're disabled. The program is just said that they must go out to work, and she have high praise from Miss clerk. Another area I'm talking about is certification. If someone go to technical college and they pass and they graduate, they're doing a skill. What is the procedure? And they're working at the trade for years now, so over 20 years. And they can hold on, they get jobs for NHC and so. How do they get this CARICOM certificate? I'm listening.
Sure. Thank you for your call.
Okay, let me speak to the last question first. The matter of certification for those persons who would have gone to technical college in those days and have that particular qualifications, but they do not have the Caribbean vocational level qualification. That is the point I was making with respect to the role of the AVIC, the expanding role of the AVIC into the amalgamated institution, national institution of training. So that is still a gap which needs to be filled. The matter with respect to the first question, that is outside of my scope of responsibility, and so that is a level beyond me. So I will leave that one because it could burn my hand, right? So I am dropping that one. Mr. Philip, I don't know if you want to speak to the matter of the agricultural situation relative to the involvement of the STEP interns.
Let me say that the STEP interns and the agriculture sector of the skills training program, it's been going pretty well. We have managed to go into schools, not only on private farms, but for instance, if you was to take a visit to the St. Peter's Primary School, there's a garden there, and it's very, very productive. Those produce are sold, we are told, and contribution are made to the schools for the maintenance and the upkeep and the activities that the schools are having. So we realize that agriculture is very important. So the STEP do support fully agriculture. Schools, very important. Normally when you visit actually too, you will see the children are taken from the classroom and are physically placed in these gardens and are taught agriculture. And the STEP support that program. The monkey control, we from the STEP point of view, we have no resources to deal with that. Agriculture department are the personnel who are going to deal with that, the monkey control.
Yeah.
Just let me butt in here with this lady who called in and spoke about the persons at the McKnight facility, persons with disabilities. She did mention one name there of the person who worked at the that center. And there's a gentleman, Mr. Mills, who is the person who's leading that activity there. Again, we have been able to, at least we had meeting with those persons there, and we have seen where certainly the input of the STEP is making a difference there. I must say that that was set up there when the PEP program was in place, and they started getting their assistance from there. So we just continue during the STEP program to continue to provide the support there. But at this place is certainly something that actually started with the STEP program in September last year. Okay. I must add as well the scope of the STEP program in assisting even within the learning the schools we have been able to assist schools by providing assistant teachers to the various primary and the secondary and high schools to enhance the capabilities of our schools. The Ministry of Education may have employed a certain number of teachers, assign them to classes, but whenever there is a need for persons who may be on sick leave or maternity leave, we have to fill those gaps. Okay? So I want to add to that as well. In addition to that, we have, as Mr. Phillips said, persons who are assigned to schools that have gardeners and so forth, cleaners, all that. So the program certainly is very wide in its scope.
Yeah.
All right?
Somebody spoke to the CARICOM skills certificate. There was one of the callers who spoke about the CSME skilled certificate.
CVQ.
Is the CVQ something similar to that?
It is. It is the same thing.
It is the same thing.
Yeah, basically and as I said before, the Tibet Council, Tibet Secretariat, is the national body that is responsible to ensure that persons are certified at the competency level, which is required.
Okay.
Of course.
And that would allow them to move and work
Within the
within CARICOM. The sustainability of STEP. Let us go back there, because it is my understanding that when the program was first introduced, it was only intended to be a 6-month program. The election was somehow delayed, and the program went on for much longer. We had a program before the PEP that was called Yes. So we've had Yes, and then after the election, it was a no, because the program ceased to exist. Then we have PEP. After the election, the last election, the program continued. And now, there have been changes to the program. The question is, how much longer can the program be sustained? A program that was intended initially for 6 months is now going on for a number of years.
That's a very profound question that you're asking, Mr. Williams. The decision to continue the program and to move it from PEP to STEP is a policy decision. And so, going forward, all I can do as the director of the program is to look at the program as it is, see how we can actually improve the quality performances of the program, standard operational procedures, and so forth, improve the efficiency of the program itself, and to also look at the possibility of putting forward ideas how we can help to sustain the program going forward. But the decision to continue or not to continue is a policy decision which is made at a level beyond my head.
Right.
So I cannot answer that question. I cannot speak to that question. But what I'm going to say is, Mr. Phillips indicated already, that it cannot be indefinitely continued as it is. because if it is assumed to be that way, then there must be an assumption as well that the SIDF will continue to generate the funds to keep it sustained.
Now, with the consultancy, you spoke about consultants and so on being involved in the program, trying to reorganize it and so on. Has there any thought been given to an economic impact assessment of the program or a social impact assessment of the program?
Coming out of the evaluation by the consultants, there would be serious indicators of how we can actually go forward. And the preliminary assessment that was done by the consultants have looked at certain areas. For example, the structure of the program itself. They've looked at the matter of the staffing and so forth. They've looked at the needs in the labor market, as well as the reporting systems, the whole matter of quality control and so forth going forward. And so when that inception report is made in the next couple of weeks, thereabout, by the consultants, we would be provided with an initial look at what they have been able to capture during their first visit. And then we'll get some more flushing out of the strategic way forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So that is the direction that you're moving in, reorganizing, making assessments, seeing how the program is positively impacting people. How the program is bringing successes to the communities and so on. And you have outlined very clearly some of the positive benefits that the program has brought to people and to the communities. Is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap up this program?
First, thank my hard-working staff at the STEP office, our office management team, payroll, field officers, supervisors, and all the interns who are on the program. We are working very hard. I want to say this though, in ending, as I would always say to the interns whenever I visit the site, ask them to seize the opportunity. Make sure they take the opportunity of the training, which is very important. It's very important to have a skill. I keep saying that when you're skilled and you're skillful and you're asked to do a job, you should not be told this is what I'm going to give you for doing the job. You should call a shot saying, listen, I'll do the job for. And that is empowerment. I want to say thanks again for having me on your program.
It won't be the last time.
I hope not.
I would like to conclude by saying also thank you very much to the staff at the STEP. We have very competent persons working there. I have, as I said before, got there in August, and in the short space that I've been there, I've seen the competency level of the staff at the office, and I want to compliment them. I wish to also lend my support to the view of Mr. Philip with respect to those persons who are out there in the field in particular, on the operational side, to encourage them to take the opportunity for training every time it is given. Because that is the way forward with respect to the objectives of this STEP program.
Sure.
I wish to thank you, Mr. Williams, for you having us on your program this afternoon.
I wanted to ask another question, which sort of slipped to me. Do you have any sort of stats in terms of how many people were on the PEP step and are now absorbed into the workforce permanently?
That is an ongoing process that we're involved in right now to try to capture that information, and that is what would be part of the role of the consultants who are here.
Okay. And how many people are currently on the STEP payroll?
It's about 2,000 and about 3 at this time, 2,300
2,300.
approximately.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Philip.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you so much, Mr. Watley, for being on today's program. Of course, the STEP program is playing a very critical role in training people for the workforce. Because with training really comes empowerment. And to fill critical areas within the society, within the workforce, skills are needed. Sometimes I wish I had some skills to be a mechanic or something like that. My thing is basically a lot in academia and all that kind of a thing, but you know, sometimes I want to do something, I have to call somebody to do it. You know, wish I could do it myself. So it is so important to have that skills training. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you who listened to today's program, those of you who called in and those of you who asked your questions, gave some positive feedback on the program, and those of you who gave your suggestions and in whatever way. We want to thank you from week to week for tuning in, for listening to us, and to giving us your feedback. This has been another edition of Working for You. We will be back next week. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Lesroy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working for You.